Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of the We Believe You podcast. I am one of your hosts, Steven.
And I'm Lonnie.
And this is our thing. We've been talking about doing this for a minute. The whole goal behind this podcast is we believe that everyone's got just like an unbelievable story that, they tell it and no one ever believes them. And we're here to say that we believe your story. We want to hear your cool stories. Everything from, the downright paranormal, just unexplainable, strange, bizarre. Even if things have an obvious answer and it's just a weird story, we want to hear those too. Yeah. And so we look forward to hearing a lot of those. We have a lot of cool things coming up over the next few episodes. A lot of weird interviews, some cool people. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
I'm really excited to finally get this going.
Yeah.
I've been talking about it since September, October.
Yeah, and the goal is always to get it started early 2019. We don't quite have all the equipment we need yet, but we're recording this on a Samsung Galaxy S8 Active.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good so far, but
we'll see.
We'll see how it all goes, but we'll definitely be able to get some equipment soon, hopefully. But I'm just excited to finally do this. We always talk about it, and we always talk about our stories, and even before recording, I had to tell you I don't want to talk about it anymore because I wanted to wait.
Yeah, we are, just so you guys know, because a lot of you don't know us, we are a married couple. We've been together like 8 years. And one of the things that, when we first got together and were dating, we both had just a lot of paranormal stories from growing up, things that have happened to us, things that have happened to friends. And so, that was just something that we really kind of took off with each other, and we had these stories. And then, really, once we got together, we started experiencing things together in various houses that we lived in various areas. And so it's just been a strange, fun ride, and our friends always like hearing these stories, so we figured other people might like hearing it too. 2 other cast members you'll hear jingling around the house because we didn't take their collars off. Our big dog Birdie and our little pug Eric. You'll see pictures of them eventually.
Yeah, Birdie's trying to eat some garbage right now.
Oh yeah, she's a little trash dog. But
she really wants this clump of hair.
Yeah. But yeah, we got some cool things really in the mix. Some people that we've reached out to and that have reached out to us. We're going to be talking with an astral projection expert, which is something that, that fascinates me. And I know that Lonnie will be into hearing more about that. She's also, that person's also like a Reiki healer. So does the energy healing, which, I'm down to hear her out. There's another guy who believes that he's been in contact with aliens his whole life. So that's gonna be a fun one. Got to work that out.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to hear these people's stories and learn more about it, because there's a lot of things that, I've heard of it, but I'm not too familiar with, and so I've known that we were going to be interviewing him and everything, so I purposely have not been researching it because I want to hear it from them, and I want to get first-person encounter rather than just like a Google search or Wikipedia. I want to hear what they've got to say, and then if they can answer my questions, great. If not, I can further look into it. But I'm just excited to interview a lot of people. We've had a lot of people reach out. Yeah. We've actually, Steven worked really hard on tracking down a few people that we've heard on other podcasts to
there's
personally hear their stories, so that's pretty sweet.
That's there's some other podcasts we listen to, and kind of the way we want to be different is we want to actually have conversations with the people that have the story. We don't want to just talk about the stories in most situations, so that's why we invite anyone who hears this to reach out to us and tell us your story. We want to talk to you. We can get in touch via Skype. Really any way we can get in touch, we're down to talk to you. I definitely tracked a guy down who had an interesting experience out in Idaho with some interesting potential government technology, and it was really funny when I reached out to him in the message board. I was like, I need this guy. I need to talk to him now. And like everyone in the group's like, well, this doesn't sound suspicious or sketchy at all. It's like, it definitely sounded like some kind of agent, like, hey man, you weren't supposed to see that, so contact me.
Yeah. Well, Steve, you have a really
I have a weird way of going about
you have a really weird way of going about things to where you will hit up anybody and everybody, let it be a celebrity or whatever, in whatever town we're visiting, or if they're visiting in the Seattle area or Tacoma area.
Jeremy Piven, check your DMs. Let's party.
You know, you like to message people, which can come off creepy, but I assure you, I wouldn't be married to a creepy guy. Well, maybe, I don't know. I'm a little creepy.
I'm like, you know, I'm on the spectrum.
He's on the spectrum of creepy.
When we went to Vegas, we wanted to see the Zach Baggins Haunted Museum, and it wasn't open yet when we were there. But I sent Aaron Goodwin a message. I'm just like, hey, Aaron, let's hang out and smoke weed and party. Then in parentheses, nothing sexual.
Which he probably was like, nah, dog, this is totally
He's like,
sexual.
this guy is trying to fuck me. But to this day, you can tell when someone's read the message. And to this day, he hasn't read it. Neither has Zach Baggins.
Ah, come on, Zach.
So,
you know, I'm not really into like douchebag bro guys, but Zach is totally my celebrity douchebag bro crush.
For sure. So yeah, with this show, like, I think we both have different things we want to explore and different paranormal and cryptid kind of things that we're into. Like, I'm obsessed with Sasquatch. I have a tattoo of the Northwest tree octopus. So I just kind of like made up funny things that are cool. We both have a lot of ghost stories, kind of different opinions on maybe what ghosts are. We'll get into all that kind of stuff. But
for this first episode, what we're going to do is actually talk about our experiences that we've had together, particularly the first house we ever moved in together. And, you know, on our next episodes, we'll kind of go into more of our backstories, but we'll kind of discuss some of the first things we've experienced as a couple and how we went about them, and how just since then, wherever we are or whatever we do, we've always got something that kind of weird or unexplained happens. But I'm one to always immediately just be like, oh, it was ghosts. Like, come on, like, we don't know what happened. It was probably a ghost.
Yeah, and I write things off. Like, we don't just
try to debunk, but it's not as fun when you debunk it.
Yeah, we don't believe, you know, everything, but I like the idea that a lot of these things can be real. And also, you guys will notice the sound in the background. Our little puppy Birdie is going absolutely fucking ape shit right now.
She was so chill before, and now she's just like, Mom, pull on this rope duck with me and let me just flop you around this whole living room.
But yeah, so I was living in a house where I was having punk rock house shows on the regular, called the Belly House, which was kind of in like the Del Ridge area of West Seattle. Cool little house. And then we got a phone call while we're partying on Halloween, and my landlord was just telling me, oh, hey, so I haven't been paying my mortgage, and, you know, you guys have to move out. The place is getting foreclosed on. And, like, for some reason we were partying and just in a good mood. So we took that news pretty well.
Yeah, I think we were just, like, sitting around watching scary movies, waiting for trick-or-treaters, which we didn't have any. Yeah. So we sat around eating all the candy, and
I smoked, like, a quarter ounce of weed and ate 10 pounds of candy. And felt like shit.
Then we got the call, and we were like, well, we got 30 days to save money, pack up, and move out.
And at this point, we're like 25, maybe 26. And so it's like, we don't really have a lot of money. We're both new to the city, living in Seattle. And so we hit Craigslist, and, you know, it took about a month to find something. And then we finally found this dinky little place in the Arbor Heights neighborhood, which is like southwest Seattle. It's fine. It's just kind of a weird little neighborhood where all the houses were built around World War II time. from they were all supposed to be the Boeing people. They were all
Yeah.
moving to the area, and so there's tiny little 2 bedroom, 1 bath, just sort of
Pretty
small
basic
little
houses.
ramblers. Yeah, just a basic little house. So we moved in there, and just kind of shit got weird immediately. When I did the viewing, the guy had comforters and blankets over every entrance to every room in the house. So it was,
Yeah, like the living room to the kitchen had a blanket between the in the doorway. The windows were covered with blankets, or the blinds were always closed.
yeah,
Kind of musty in
it was
there.
very musty. It was just weird, kind
But
of gross.
when you're desperate
Yeah,
to not be homeless, I mean, you
yeah,
take what you can and what you can somewhat afford at the
yeah.
time.
And the weird thing because I remember I did the first walkthrough by myself because you were at work, and just walking in and the amount of crosses that were in there, it was a creepy level.
It
Like
was weird.
it was like take your parents and times it by two.
Yeah, there was a lot going on there.
Yeah, and it was just like super weird, uncomfortable feeling, just a bad juju in that place. But it was pretty cheap, I think, at the
I
time.
mean, at the time, I mean, yeah,
I think
it was less than $1,000 a month. I remember our rent was like $948, and it was like fully fenced in yard for our dog. You know, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, so we could have our room, and then you could have your jam room, and you know, and it had a washer and dryer. We were just mostly stoked on that. I think
Yeah,
we were
but
like, sweet.
pretty much other than that place was just gross. And
The carpet was like
yeah,
so old.
God, that place was just disgusting. It stank. But
Why did we move in there?
it was kind of like we were scared of being homeless. I think that's the only reason.
It was a diamond in the rough.
But so one of the first things that happened when we moved in there is we met the neighbors, who the neighbors on both sides of that house were both friends with each other, and both really didn't like the guy that was living between them. They actually wanted to buy the property and tear it down, and then just have like a joined backyard between the two houses, which would have been awesome. But they immediately started telling us really weird stories about the guy. Just how he was creepy. He was always burning his trash.
Yeah, he never used like waste management. He always burned his trash in the backyard.
Yeah.
And they just said it would smell awful, and he just, you know, just wouldn't try. He would eliminate or decrease the amount of outside communication or anything like that as much as possible.
And where things get really creepy is like one day he just had like a young teenage daughter that had never been there before, never heard about them. And she was just kind of living there all of a sudden, which, you know, isn't uncommon. He could have like got custody or something like that, or, you know, the mom could have gotten sick. You never know. But it doesn't get really weird until you see what you know was the girl's room, and the windows are covered with bars, and there was a lot of stickers for like a kid that would be way younger than that girl would have been. But she came over to the neighbor's house for dinner one night. It was just completely unsocialized for a child. Super weird. Was asking them if they were gangsters just because they were like Mexicans, pretty much. And she was
Hispanic family,
and nice Hispanic family.
They were so nice.
Yeah, one of the nicest people we ever lived next to, actually. But yeah, she was like scared of them, kind of just because they were Mexican and had tattoos. And she was only ever allowed to come over and hang out one time, and then after that, like, she had told them, like, I'm not allowed to play with you guys anymore, which is just super weird. And then one day the girl was just gone. And then the police raided the house.
The police raided the house.
And nobody was home. Yeah, both the neighbors just watched like a bunch of squad cars roll up to the house, run in, kick in the door, went inside for a couple minutes, and then just left. And they never heard anything about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's when we started noticing the weird shit. Like every little opening between the fence boards, there was like, normally you can kind of like peek through. He had put strips of cardboard behind everything, so you could never peek in any part of the backyard that you could have been able to peek over the fence from like a neighboring viewpoint. he built up just crudely, just like,
with pallets
yeah,
and
pallets, just a
cardboard.
cardboard so no one could see in. So this guy was definitely just, if he wasn't doing anything creepy, he was just weird. But there was just a dark, negative vibe in that house. And like, I remember first night taking a shower, and then it looked like the walls were bleeding. You brought
Yeah.
that up
I was
earlier.
like, I walked in and you were in the shower, and I was like, what is this stuff coming out of the walls? And it was just this red,
Kind of pinkish. Yeah.
thick goop, like just dripping down the walls. And I was like, it looks like the walls are bleeding.
Yeah.
But it was probably mold.
Yeah, we think it was just like mold and mildew and just grossness just coming out of the walls. But then
I immediately painted the walls.
yeah, we didn't clean the walls, we painted them.
Oh, I cleaned them. I wiped them down. Good.
Yeah. But but yeah, it was pretty soon that like some really weird, like we had both had, paranormal and weird things happen to us before, but it was pretty immediate that I'd say things started being weird.
I would say that we moved in. We had, I remember our first night there. We ate some Chinese food off of milk crates, and it was our first home together. We were excited for this new adventure together. We had never lived with, a partner before, and so we were both like, this is the first step of our new adventure, and so we ate our food and just kind of hung out, and then we got settled, and I would say within a week things.
Yeah, middle of the night, waking up to the sound of just glass shattering.
Yeah, I think like that was kind of one of the first things. Is I was sleeping and I thought somebody broke into the house through the kitchen because it sounded like the glass flew in and landed on the linoleum, and I woke you up, and I was like, Steven, somebody's breaking in. I just heard the whole, like, a window shatter.
So I jump up, just totally ass naked
with your machete,
with my machete, and run out because, I mean, you guys are hearing my voice but not seeing me. I am a 6 foot, 300-pound bearded man. So if you see me run out of a bedroom totally dick naked and waving a machete, like, you're getting the fuck out of my way. That's
this is true.
like that or some weird shit's gonna go down.
Right. So like that, just little things like that at first, just hearing things like kind of through the night, and then
I think what kind of the accompaniment to that was the sound of our doorknobs kind of shaking. Mm-hmm. It was almost like there was somebody on the other side of our bedroom door just turning the doorknob, and that was what really started to freak me out. Mm-hmm. Because that's when, I don't know, shit just kind of started getting weird. Other than that's also when things kind of started happening to us individually that we weren't always telling the other person about.
Yeah. Well, I think mine started. I'm a sleeper. Everybody knows this. I love sleep. And I've never had any issues with like nightmares or night terrors, but within a month of living in that house, I started having night terrors to where Steven would have to basically lay on top of me because I would be kicking and screaming and crying in my sleep, and he would have to, and it was almost like I was attacking him, and he would have to get me to calm down, and
you got me a few bloody noses.
Yeah, slowly wake me up, and I would just wake up out of my sleep, and I don't even remember it, and I remember all my dreams usually, and I don't remember what it was that was causing that.
Yeah,
I don't remember any of those dreams. I just remember waking up, crying and breathing hard, and you being like, "Are you okay? You're having a night terror again." And it's with me, it started with that, and I can somewhat be in my own world and oblivious, but I definitely started experiencing things on my own. And whenever I worked at the time 2 jobs, and then eventually I worked 3 jobs. So and Steven had a full-time day job, so with my hours being a little different, I would be home alone during the day. And even in we moved in winter time, I would still, leave the front door open. I just never could be alone in that house. And I just always felt uneasy, and so the front door was always open.
Yeah.
Because I just felt like I would be able to hear or see people and not, because it just felt like I wasn't alone, to where the front door being open to the outside just made me feel safer.
Yeah. And so I think one of the first kind of things that started happening to me in that place pretty quickly was seeing shadow figures, which is just super creepy. But I remember the way we had our couch set up to look at our TV. If you're looking at the TV, you would look off to your right, and you could see down the hallway to where the bedrooms were, and where the quote unquote the guest bedroom, or like, you know, where I had all my musical stuff. I had this little Buddha plasma ball. So it's a Buddha that's holding one of those little glowing balls where if you touch it, the electricity goes to your fingers. And, you know, it lit up that room just a little bit. And I would just sit and watch, and you could see something pacing back and forth in the room. And you would see it because the ball would be glowing, and then all of a sudden it would go dark for a second, and you would see the, like, just essentially the outline in your peripherals of someone walking around in there. And that's when, I mean, I had kind of seen that before, but that house was really the first, like, prominent shadow figures that I had seen. And I honestly think that they were just fucking with us for a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that place was just ridiculous. One of our good friends, his name's Kyle, he only came to that house twice. I remember the first time he walked in the door, came, sat down. The second he sat down, the power blew out.
Every single in the electrical box was like flipped the other way.
Yeah,
like
every single fuse was blown. It wasn't shitty out. There was no
He's
rain.
like, no, when I came in, everybody else's power was on.
Yeah, and so that was just, you know, weird. We went and flipped the breaker and got the power back on, and didn't really think much of it. But then about 2 months later, he came back to visit, walked in the house. And the second he walked in our house, the power blew again.
Every fuse again.
Every fuse again.
And it was the only times that it ever happened was when he came in the house.
Yeah, that was just, to me, that was just so weird.
Fucking Kyle.
Yeah, fucking Kyle. But, yeah, there was some weird, you know, just shadow figure stuff going on. I think the scariest moment in that whole house, though, was when we were asleep, and both of our dogs, who are no longer with us anymore, unfortunately, Allie and Louie, great dogs, but they were, you know, Allie was laying on the floor, and she was a big husky cross, and my dog Louie was a German Shepherd cross. So, you know, kind of tough-looking dogs a little bit. They can growl, but in the middle of the night, we woke up to both of them just barking and snarling. Just
out of nowhere, out of dead sleep, both of them just growling and snarling, running into the living room.
Yeah, and then they both, you know, Louie jumped off the bed, Allie stood up, and they both ran into the living room. And then the second that they would have, like, got to, like, the kitchen area, living room, they both stopped barking, stopped snarling, and they both just kind of turned around and ran back into our bedroom, and then, like, hopped on the bed and were just staring at the door.
Yeah, they just went silent, ran back in with, like, their tails between their legs, and just laid down, didn't make another peep, and just laid there and stared at the door.
That was yet another time I had to get up with my fucking machete and walk out into the room naked. It's like, if you have a ghost, what good is a machete gonna do anyway? Yeah. It's like, you can't machete a ghost. You can't kill a ghost.
Well.
But I don't know. I also don't really believe that ghosts can really do harm to people all that much. So it's like, besides, you know, freaking us out, it's just kind of worrisome. But, like, we have some weird theories about that place. Like, I got a theory that guy that lived there before has probably killed his daughter.
Yeah, probably.
Well,
and that would explain the weird smell in our fridge. We contacted our landlord and said, hey, you know, like, we've been here for about a month or so, and our fridge, we have scrubbed it, we've done everything, and it just is rank.
And she was just a mean old lady, or a mean old Asian lady who was just like, well, you know,
fridges smell.
Fridges have a smell.
And
And
we're
we're
like a corpse, like a
yeah.
dead body. Like this thing is rank and it's like contaminating our food. It's so bad. And she just wouldn't replace it. And she just said, well, fridges just smell bad. And we're like, dude, this is so he probably butchered his daughter and feasted on her. He probably, got her packaged, put her in the freezer,
Yeah.
planning dinner. He took the meat out and put it in the fridge to defrost for the day.
It was that place was just there was just a bad vibe. Like I remember, God, one of those times, just being stoned as hell, sitting in the back bedroom, and just like getting really sad for no reason, and just like you could just feel just like a sorrow in that room that was nowhere else in the house. Like it was just bad.
Didn't you say that whenever you would play, you'd hear
Oh yeah.
stuff?
Oh man, I forgot about that. But yeah, like I'm a musician and I write all my songs on an acoustic guitar, and so just at that place when I would be playing my songs, it would start to sound almost like there was a room full of people talking, like when you're performing at some shitty dive bar, and like people aren't respecting the musician.
Yeah, if you go to a dive bar and a musician's playing, just sidebar, just be respectful of the musician.
Yeah.
Don't talk louder and try to talk over the music.
Like when
just
you
be polite.
yeah, well you learned that lesson at that Austin Lucas show.
I was wasted. Yeah, I was hammered.
I had to save you from embarrassment.
Yeah, I needed to be. I needed to go finish my conversation outside. Once it was brought to my attention that I was being an asshole, I was like, "Yeah, I'm drunk, and you're 1,000% correct. I'm gonna step out."
Yeah, but yeah, I had forgotten about that. But yeah, so I'd be playing guitar and I'd literally just hear like the sounds of a bar just happening, and then I would stop playing because where we lived, you could hear the neighbors, you could hear a lot of things there, and I would just stop and it would just be silent. It was so eerie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that house just it was just an evil little house. I hope.
Well,
I remember after we only lived at that house. I guess we should promise for about 7 or 8 months.
it was 9.
Or 9 months. Yeah, we moved out at the beginning of September. That's when we moved in with Brian and Kayla.
Yeah.
And you guys should check out Kayla's podcast. I Want to Wear Your Skin.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's definitely a good podcast. It's funny. They talk about Hallmark movies.
Or Lifetime.
Or Lifetime movies, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, and yeah,
Just
it's
terrible.
good. Her and Jill do a great job and have a really good rapport with that. So definitely check that out too.
But yeah, so and then yeah, it was just one of those houses, and we had stuff happen to us before, but I think that was like
Well,
that was the end all. That was when I was like officially
the night
initiated into the weirdness.
the night that made me just kind of be like, yeah, we should probably get the fuck out of here was we were in bed, it's late, and this is prior to getting Eric, our pug. And just Louie was at the house. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I hear Louie's tennis ball bouncing. And so I thought Louie was just having one of those nights where he probably slept all day, so he's going to be up tonight. And he would do this thing where he'd play with the tennis ball and he'd kind of bounce it around for himself and play with himself. So I woke up hearing the tennis ball and I'm, in the hallway and I'm thinking, oh, Louie's up playing. Well, I didn't realize this, but Louie was actually on our bed. And I kind of lift my head up and I'm kind of like looking over my shoulder and I see Louie stand up and literally like almost like slithered off the bed. He just slowly creeped off the bed, went to our doorway and would not go outside the door. And he just laid there, just looking out the door. And I kept hearing the tennis ball bouncing and then it stopped. And then it sounded like nails on carpet. It was kind of like this like sound on the carpet. And I'm watching Louie and he's not doing a thing. He's just laying there. So I'm hearing this scratching. And then I hear the tennis ball like bounce one more time and then like roll in towards Louie. And then Louie like gets up and walks back to the bed, curls up at the bottom of my feet, and just is staring at the door. And me being me, like, I literally just took the blanket, put it over my head, and like buried myself in my pillow just to go back to sleep. Because I was like, I don't know what the hell that was. I didn't like it. Louis didn't seem to like it too much. And I'm like,
And I slept through that shit.
you slept through it. And I'm just like, and it wasn't even like I woke up. You know when you wake up and you're like foggy?
Mm-hmm.
Like I woke up and I was like awake. And I was just like watching the door. And I'm just like waiting for just something. And I'm just hearing this clawing and the ball bouncing. And I'm just like, that's when I kind of was just like, nope. And I just laid back down. I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, I'm not into it at all. But that was like one of the biggest things that happened to me, other than, I mean, I remember we kind of had this carport that the previous owner had, or renter had built. It wasn't a garage, but it was a carport that had been like tarped and just real shitty.
Yeah, it was a kill shack for sure.
Yeah. But there was a bunch of just stuff in there, and we had never really gone through it. There was like a ladder and like a toolbox or something like that, and there was just some random stuff that we kind of kept stored in there that wouldn't get damaged. And
we did find a picture of
and that's when
a young girl.
That's when we found these old photos of I'm assuming his daughter in like these dresses in the backyard, like posing, but she looked ooh, bless you. She looked like it was a forced smile. Yeah. And she just looked really insecure, and she just looked,
and they weren't like perverted dresses or anything.
No.
Like,
it almost looked like a homecoming dress or like something like that. Just like a gown kind of, dress, and then just like standing there really like arms to the side or like crossed with like this smile of hesitation or something. It was just, and I was like, when I found those, I remember being like, Steven, what the fuck? Like, look at these photos we just found.
Yeah.
Like, it was so creepy.
Yeah, that was such a creepy house. I think the last thing, like, I just experienced a lot of like the shadow figures, but I also have a hard time differentiating. An episode down the road a little bit, we'll talk about our shoreline house, which is where personally I had the most stuff happen to me, and the houses had the exact same layout.
Yeah, exact same.
And so, like, the exact same. They had to have been built by the same, like, manufacturer. I think that was
just kind of like the way houses were built.
Yeah.
That decade.
So I have a hard time remembering what happened at Shoreline and what happened at the Arbor Heights house. And so since you were my wife and we like to spouse-splain each other, you informed me that a lot of the things I thought happened at this house actually happened at Shoreline.
Well, because we were at the Shoreline house for 2 years, and we were in this house for 9 months. Like, we had a lot of stuff happen in 9 months, and then when we had the opportunity to get out, we were out.
Yeah.
And but I do remember this is one story that I recall from you. Is that like you and our buddy Mexico were sitting in the living room and you had basically a conversation with somebody.
Well, no, it wasn't a conversation.
Something like that.
Yeah, so we were sitting there, and people always, when we tell these stories, people know me, they know that I'm the resident pothead of the group, and whenever I tell these stories, everyone's like, "Oh, how stoned were you?"
Well, how stoned were you?
I mean, the answer to that is always about like a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
But
fair enough.
Doesn't mean you don't experience shit. But yeah, we're hanging out, just sitting there listening to music, smoking a little bit of weed, and we heard somebody, which sounded like right outside the window, just go, "Hello?" Yeah. And we're like, "Hello? Who's there?" And then it happened one more time, just like, "Hello?" And we're like, what the fuck? So I mean, we were 2 feet from the door. So I look out the door. There's nobody in our yard. I walk out into the front yard. There's literally nobody in the neighborhood. Yeah. Like, it's dark. Like, normally I would think it's one of our neighbors because we had the window open. So, like, the people would have been able to, like, look in and see that we were doing some bonging. And both those neighbors were stoners. And so, like, But normally they would just knock and walk in the door. They wouldn't.
Yeah, like we kind of had that relationship with our neighbors where it was kind of like.
That was the last time we had good neighbors.
Yeah, it was like we were actually close with them, and until one of them kind of made us mad by cutting down our tree, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't really our tree. We were renting the tree, but still. It kind of hit our bedroom window, and we came home, and that tree was gone. And we were like, I thought you were trimming the branches, not chopping it down. But no, they were tight. And I do remember that, but the one thing that makes me think, like who could it have been, is because our mailman that we had there was a dick.
Oh, dude,
he guy was a straight up dick. He threatened to mace our dogs, and I'm like, dude, we have a fenced yard, and our mailbox is outside the fence. If our dogs come to the gate and are sniffing you, like Louis had a big bark, but he was not a mean dog.
Yeah.
And Eric is just, oblivious to the world.
Pug. Yeah.
And it's like if our dogs walk up to the gate because somebody is at it, that's not like terms of macing them.
Yeah, I had to threaten that guy.
We had to tell him, like, if you mace our dogs, we'll sue you. Like,
I told the guy I'd beat the shit out of him.
It's like if our dogs are on our side of the fence, and you just like out of nowhere just mace them because you're a tuna, doesn't mean that that's it's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Get a new job.
Yeah.
But I think once we got Eric, we got him in February of that year. So
a lot of this stuff really only happened over the course of a couple months. But I remember the last thing that really happened there to either of us before we moved out was I woke up in the middle of the night one night, and the first thing I saw was just like the shadow of just like a person standing next to my bed. But it wasn't scary. Like I wasn't alarmed by it. Mm-hmm. But my first thought was like to rationalize how it was there. Like, because there was a window. I'm like, oh, it's just from the bush. It's just an illusion. But there's no shadows on the wall like the way that from the outside light, because the light wouldn't have refracted there. It would have been on the other side. And so it would have been on your wall, not mine, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, it was just one of those things I stared at for literally a minute or two, and it didn't move. But it literally just looked like a large person with their arms folded. And then I just like went back to bed, and I never had anything happen there to me again. And then we moved out like a few weeks later, a month later, and never thought about it again. And then our next house didn't really have much of anything happen.
No, that's when we lived in Queen Anne for a year, and I don't remember nothing really happening there.
Yeah. But it's funny, we were talking to my family about this podcast and the experiences that we've both had, and I told my aunt about, oh, this house was haunted and this house was haunted, and she said, did you ever stop to think that maybe you have something that just follows you no matter where you live? I was like, fuck you, Aunt Chris.
Well, I do believe that for me in the sense, and that's when I'm going to get into it for another episode, is that's my backstory of growing up, and something that happened to me when I was 12 years old, and ever since have always felt like a presence with me, but never negative. Yeah. And that's definitely something that I can get into on the next, one of our next episodes. But it was definitely a weird experience. And all I can say is if that spirit's with me still, which I definitely believe she is, that she doesn't scare me. She doesn't cause me harm. She doesn't purposely do anything to scare me or anything like that. So I find her to be... I'm accepting of her, and until she does something that makes me think otherwise, I've been fine living and, me living and coexisting with her.
And like everyone's kind of got a different idea too of what a spirit that follows you could be. It's like some people think they're demons, some people think they're ghosts, some people call them angels. Like, I don't know. There's watchers out there for sure. Regardless of what they are, there's watchers out there. Yeah. But
well, and that's why, like, this podcast. I'm super excited for it. I love it. But like, you know, on our wedding day when you wrote me a card and you said, I can't wait to live the rest of my life with you, and then, you know, haunt people when we die. Like, I'm gonna totally fuck with people when I die.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If that's a true thing, yeah, I'm coming after you.
For sure. But I think that's all we got for this episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the story of the Arbor Heights house. All the background heavy panting, breathing, and noise was our little puppy Birdie. So you can thank her for that. I swear it wasn't me.
Yeah, no, and I just sound probably a little congested. I'm still getting over a cold, but
we're gonna figure this out.
Yeah. So
and,
thanks everybody for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode to kind of get the backstory of Steven's life and
your life
and my life, and
we'll definitely we'll have some cool stories that other people have sent us as well. We got a little handful of those, so hopefully you know this inspires you guys to let us know your story, and yeah.
And just so you know, we are sponsored by nobody. So special thanks out there to whoever's listening. And
special thanks to the things that we bought ourselves with our own money.
Yeah. And music will be done by Tim Held.
Yep.
And
brother-in-law's making us an intro song.
And we do not have graphic design yet, so sooner or later we'll have somebody to thank for that.
Yep. So we're going to get it all figured out. Check us out on Facebook. Just type in the We Believe You podcast. If you want to email us a story, you can do it there, or hit us up at the We Believe You podcast at gmail.com. We're probably going to be launching some Instagram soon because Instagram's the most fun. Slide into our DMs, as the young hipsters say. Yeah, thank you very much. We believe you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone.